Hello, everyone. Now, if you're anything like me, your winter harvest is just not doing well. There's probably snow in your backyard, and there's just not enough sunlight for anything to actually grow. Pretty much the only thing that I've managed to grow a little bit is this garlic, and as you can see, it's not looking good. I was having hopes for my potatoes, but this stem did this yesterday, which means it's also pretty much dead. So instead of curling up in a fetal position, let's talk about what you can actually do during this time of the season to actually make your next season of gardening even more productive. Now, if you come with me outside, I'm planning to grow in this balcony space, which, it's not huge. It's a decent size, about 10 meters square. This is what that is in feet. So it's going to be really important for me to plan out exactly what I need to plant, when I need to plant, when I need to harvest, and get these crop rotations going in order for me to grow as many plants as I possibly can this season, because this season I want to experiment. Also, those bags back there are my overwintered peppers. Tomorrow and the day after, it's going to be like negative 13 degrees, so I don't think they're going to make it, but who knows? Subscribe if you want to see if they do. So that brings us back to the studio where I don't have any plants, but this is going to be a fantastic opportunity to go ahead and plan our entire 2024 gardening season. So how do I go about doing that? Well, there's an incredible garden planner made by this great channel called GrowVeg, which I absolutely love. So let me go ahead and show you exactly how I use that. So you want to go ahead and go to their website, and they've got a bunch of default plans already set up for us. So let's say you need a little bit of inspiration. Let's call that la la la. And we head on over to the sample plans. And let's just take the Feed Your Family garden. I feel like that's a great place to start. So let's go ahead and grab that and give this a custom name. Let's call it test and go ahead and create plan. So this then gives us a default plan. And what you can do is you can input your different plants. So let's say you want sweet corn. What you would do is you would come over here to the plants, go ahead and type whatever you're looking for. Let's go crazy. Let's see about peanuts. So I would click the peanut, drag it in, and if you expand this box, it's going to show you exactly how many you should plant in a given area, which is, great. So you can obviously do that with all the plants. And what's really cool about this is you can also add structures. So if we go over here, we've got some peas, we've got some beans, we've got some cucumbers, and some nice nasturtiums for decoration. But what do these plants all have in common? They are vining plants, which means that they like to climb up objects. So what we've got here is a bean support, which is kind of a trellis. So in the garden objects section, we've got a bunch of very useful stuff we can put here. We can even put like a beehive down here, a chicken coop. That's pretty funny. But what's really cool about this is, let me go ahead and take these tomatoes here and show you basically the genius part of this garden planner. So if you go up here, you will see exactly when you should sow them and when you should harvest the tomatoes. Now, let's say you live in a region where you've got some kind of lighter winters and you're wondering if you covering the crop might extend its season a little bit. The answer is yes. So if we go ahead and we take one of these tunnels and we place those over just these tomatoes over here, and we then go to the plant list. Here, for example, you'll see that one of the tomatoes has been identified as having the row cover over it. The other two, I need to move it around a little bit to cover them. But you'll see that this here for March and November is extended about 2 weeks either side for this location. But Eddy, how does this program know about my location? Well, when you first select the plan, you're going to have an additional window, which I didn't have anymore because I've already gone through that process, where you give 3 input variables, which is your location, so that they can check the weather and the sunlight that your area is expected to have. You put in your first frost date and as well your last frost date. Now, they do have automatic frost date selections for some countries, but that's really easy to Google if they don't have it specifically for your location. They'll give you a message like, hey, you might want to double check these figures if you should do that. So now that we have an idea of how the planner works more or less, let me go ahead and show you what I've scheduled for 2024. So I've placed all of my plants in their designated containers throughout the year, but you might be thinking, that's great and all, but my garden is going to look very different in March than it will in August. And that's absolutely true, especially in some regions where you have enough of a growing season to kind of do a crop rotation. I don't really have that here. I've only got about 4 or 5 months where it makes sense to grow anything. But a wonderful part about this tool is if I go ahead and select my leek here, you can see that it's going to give me when I should be putting it in the ground, right, between February and June, and when I can expect to start harvesting it, which is between September and the beginning of April. So if I go ahead and input that into this thing for each of the different vegetables, what I can do is instead of looking at it over all months, let's go ahead and hit January. Now, I don't have anything growing besides the garlic, which you saw, which doesn't look very good at all. And my potatoes didn't make it. Nothing else wants to grow. I've tried onions. I've tried carrots. Just there's no sunlight, guys. There was like 4 hours of sunlight last month. So just nothing grows in this climate. Now, if we move on to the next month, February, you can see that that's already going to start getting interesting because I'm going to be able to put some chives in this container, some leek, some onions, some shallots as well. And if we move on to March, we've got the kale, the spring onions, the tomatoes, the peppers, and the beans, and the lettuce coming in. That's always fun. And then in April, things really start heating up. We start to have some companion planting going on where I put some radishes in these pots, as well as some basil and tomatoes. Basil and tomatoes make fantastic companions. And we've got all this other stuff as well: oregano, potatoes, basil, lavender, ginger, celery, spinach, endives, more basil, Swiss chard, carrots, and parsley coming in. But I just mentioned companion planting. You might be wondering, well, what is companion planting? Very simply, some vegetables, pretty much all vegetables, benefit from having a different type of crop planted in very, very close proximity to them. So if you want to know, hey, what should I be planting next to my lettuce, next to my tomatoes, next to my whatever, you can go ahead and select a plant. Let's do something like tomatoes. And if you go over here to the plant area and you press show companions, it's going to show the companion plants that you should be planting close to your tomatoes. So we've got here the basil, which is one of the most classic combinations. Last year, I put basil in all of my tomato plants and they grew spectacularly. But you see as well that other good ideas are stuff like rosemary, thyme, potato, parsley, radishes, garlic. So you can go ahead and plan your garden according to that. And so this is another fantastic tool, right? It's telling us exactly when we should put stuff in the ground, when we can expect to harvest it, what we should be planting around it, what actually fits in the space that we have. So let's just go ahead and finish running through these months real quick. We've got May, in which I'm going to put some nasturtiums to help pollinate the other plants. And as well, we've got the cucumber gherkins coming in. Gherkins are like the small cucumbers made for pickling. We've got some lemongrass, which really shouldn't fit, but I'm thinking it's grass. I can probably make it work. And lemongrass is awesome because when you harvest it, you're kind of taking like the whole thing out and it leaves behind a little bulb, which you can then actually put back in the ground and it'll come up again. So that's going to be a really fun experiment. We've got thyme, peanut, sweet corn, beetroot, and mint. And as well, peanut is also going to be really cool because basically it grows as like a little bush. And then the peanuts themselves kind of dive into the ground and then they get like bigger. It looks really cool. I really recommend looking that up. So that's going to be a blast to grow. And if we keep going, June, we've got the rosemary and sweet potatoes coming in. July, just making sure everything's growing. Start harvesting a couple stuff, I'm sure. August, again, same story. September, the shallots are going to need to be pulled up, right? They're going to be ready in August. And I'm going to put some strawberries there. Then probably I'm going to have some potatoes ready as well. I can put some strawberries in there too. Then in November, pretty much all of these plants that have gone are no longer going to be productive. So there's no point keeping them in the ground. I know that that's going to be a time to kind of pull them all out and probably compost them or figure out what I'm going to do with all of that. Which brings us to November, where I've still got quite a decent amount of stuff in the ground, but obviously by the time December comes around, we're down to basically just the bare minimum stuff, and this stuff is probably going to last a couple of months, and we'll see what makes it through the winter. But that's the entire 2024 season planned with this incredible tool. And the last thing I want to show you is this plant list here, because this is also an absolutely essential part of this garden planner. Now, what this does is it aggregates every single plant that you've placed in your layout, and it gives you a bunch of information about it, right? The size, how closely you should be grouping them together. And the brilliant part is that you can sort by indoor sow date, outdoor sow date, and harvest date. And the one that I find the most useful is to sort by the outdoor sowing date, because then I know exactly when I should be putting stuff in the ground, taking them out of the little transplant starter seeder trays and be putting them in my containers outside, basically. So as you can see, then here I have everything that's listed for February, which is the shallots. Then in April, I know that all of these plants need to go in, right? These four here, and then these in the second half of April. You know, April's going to be a pretty intense month. Then in May, we've got a couple more plants going in, and that's basically it for my season. I mean, I've also got some stuff in June and then some really late stuff in September and November, but I have doubts that that stuff is going to work, but it's there. It's there in the planner, and depending on your season, you might be able to grow a lot more than this. So that's it, guys. I just want to give another massive shout out to GrowVeg. I think they've got an amazing product here. I've been using their 7-day free trial. I'm probably going to end up buying like a full year subscription because I found this to just be so useful. And if I do end up getting access to a bigger plot, I'm going to definitely be using this again to plan out that plot. So if you guys found this interesting and you want to come with me on my gardening journey this year, as you can see, I've got a lot of really interesting stuff planned. Go ahead and subscribe. And thank you guys so much for watching.